All right, we're going to start with a little Bible study this morning. Everyone bow your heads. Dear Father God, thank you for this day. Thank you for us coming together. May you give us the eyes and the ears and the hearts and the minds to take in this word. May we apply it to our lives. May we be an example of it and live it. In the mighty name of Jesus, amen. I am going to start off with the book of Job and the first chapter, and I'm going to go to verse 6. All right, so this morning I'm going to talk about some things that people might find a little bit awkward about either coming to church or learning about the gospel or developing a relationship with God. Sometimes, a lot of the times, things that I hear about people that are already saved, and when they're trying to help other people that may not be saved, people tend to say things like, they think they're better than me, or people feel like they're too messed up to come to God, or they feel like they're not good enough, and all these different things that come with gaining a relationship with the Lord. And I like the fact that God does not choose all these people that are perfect, even though sometimes the way that some of the folks that are in the Bible are preached, their personalities or their characters or how they're described may paint them more as a perfect person or a holy person. But a lot of these people that the Lord chose to use these people as examples for us and how we should live and how our lives might parallel with some of theirs, we soon come to find that these people weren't perfect. So I'm going to start off in this chapter first. Job, the first chapter, I'm going to start off with verse 6. And then I'm going to go on to some other characters. So the main character is Job. The next character that we're going to talk about, well, I don't like to call them characters, but we'll just say characters for now. The next person is going to be Joseph, Daniel, and then lastly, Abraham. And I know it's kind of, it seems like a lot by saying those four people's names, but they all share a common thing. So I'm going to start off with Job, first Job 1 and 6, excuse me. Now, there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them. And the Lord said unto Satan, Whence thou comest? And Satan answered the Lord and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and walking up and down in it. And the Lord said unto Satan, Hast thou considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God, and escheweth evil? Then Satan answered the Lord and said, Doeth Job fear God, or for no? Has not thou made an hedge about him, and about his house, and all that he hath, on every side, that thou hast blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land? But put forth thy hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face. Now this is what Satan is saying to the Lord, that he's going to curse him if he starts messing with his stuff. And going to 12. And the Lord said unto Satan, Behold, all that he hath is in thy power. Only upon himself put not forth thy hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of the Lord. So 42nd chapter of Job. Job says, Then it says, then Job answered the Lord and said, I know that thou canst do everything, and that no thought can be withheld from thee. Who is he that hideth counsel without knowledge? Therefore I uttered that I understood not things too wonderful for me, which I knew not. Here I beseech thee, and I will speak. I will demand thee, and declare thou unto me. I have heard of thee by hearing of the ear, but now my eyes seeth thee. Now I skipped to that chapter because if you ever decide to read the whole chapter, most of you have, of Job, you will learn and understand that Job went through a heck of a time. And it was based upon his obedience and his suffering that the Lord ended up blessing him. He lost his family, he became ill. He had sores on his body, so he was in agonizing pain. He even had people that suggested to him, just to do away with God because of look at what he's going through. Why would you keep God around? But the whole time, the Lord had a lot of faith in Job, and he had faith in Job from the beginning. Just like when he talked to Satan, and Satan, was telling the Lord, that he will curse him. He will curse him to his face, if he messed around with his stuff. So I'm going to head over to look at Joseph's life. Joseph is in Genesis 39, and I'm going to go over to verse 18. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled out. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, after this manner did thy servant to me, and his wrath was kindled. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison in a place where king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. Now we know that Joseph went through a heck of a time as well. He's just been beaten and thrown in a hole by his own brothers. Not only that, he's been taken out of this hole and then sold into slavery. And then, transferred over one more time. And then he ends up in Potiphar's house. And he has to serve out his time there, not knowing if he's going to make it back home or not. He wasn't too sure what was going to happen to him, but he knew he couldn't just get up and just run away. So he had to submit and do whatever it was that he needed to do in order for him to survive or to live in that area. But this whole time, Joseph was suffering. Now Joseph is inside of this prison, and as you can see, time passes on. The Lord is still showing him favor. Although he's sitting inside this prison, he never once got angry at God or cursed him or got upset. He just did his time, and he constantly would ask the Lord, to have some mercy on him and to find some way to get him out of that situation. So he constantly depended upon God no matter what. Now we're going to look at Daniel. Now, as we know, the book of Daniel, chapter 6 describes his transfer going into servitude, and then not only that, him being under people whom favored him, but there were people around him that didn't like the favor that he had upon him. and they could see that he was blessed, and they were trying to figure out how can they stop this blessing from happening. What can they do to him to get him out of the way? So, of course, we know he was thrown in a hole with lions. He was thrown into the lion's den, and he was suffering. And by the grace of God and through prayers, he was not harmed, because those lions could have eaten him at any point in time. But not one time throughout everything that had happened to him, even being thrown into the fire, into this fiery place over and over again, being faced with that, suffering over and over again. He didn't curse God not one time, and he showed his obedience to God over and over again. Lastly, we have Abraham. And if you go into the book of Genesis, Genesis 12 starts off from the beginning. Now the Lord had said unto Abraham, Get thee out of thy country, from thy kindred, from thy father's house, and into a land that I will show thee. Now we know that this was a difficult thing for Abraham to do. Abraham was going to have to suffer through this and leave everything that he knew, everything that he had. He was going to have to leave it all behind and start fresh and start over again. And the same thing happened to all four men that I just named. And even though all their lives ended up, very, very different, they all had something in common. They all had to suffer. They all had to show obedience. They all had to start over again. And terrible things happened to them, and they had to endure terrible things. Now we think today that coming to God is always going to be something easy, or we want to be blessed, but we want a microwave blessing. We want it to be a quick 2-minute, thing. But we don't realize that we have to suffer through these things. We have to give things up. We have to start fresh. We have to become a whole new everything in order for the Lord to bless us. We can't stay exactly where we are. And many of us in our lives have gone through some things that were extremely terrible. Some of us have lived, semi-decent lives, but maybe we might have had to give up a lot of things. So not to say that everybody's life is exactly the same pattern, but God, I feel like before he did it to Christ, he was leading up to this point to show people over and over again. We learn through the things that we suffer. It said it pleased him to bruise Christ. Christ learned through the things that he suffered. So this walk was not an easy walk. And most people think that when they come to God, that their walk should be easy, or because they see people changed, that their lives are easy. But every day something is happening to them that we may not see because we're not with them all the time. But God is asking us constantly to obey him, to be obedient, to let things go, to have forgiveness, all these different things. And he teaches us over and over again to suffer. Recently, I watched a documentary, and this was a prison documentary, and we know how bad prison can be for some of those people. Some of the people had really done some really terrible things, and that was just their punishment. That's what they had to suffer through. But a lot of them did not understand, I did something wrong. Now this is the repercussion. Now I got to suck it up and, suffer through this thing. They were trying to figure out ways how to throw up their victimhood. Oh, this is happening to me, instead of realizing that this was something that happened because of their disobedience, or because of sin, or because they had done, something wrong. So I'm going to go back to Job. I'm just going to put my finger on that. But yes, some of the things that we go through now, it may not be like the same exact result as what I described just now about the documentary, the prison documentary. But I chose these four men in general because most people in their lifetime, they will end up going through some of the exact same things. So when things are going well for us in our lives, especially Job in particular, the Lord said that he was a righteous man. You know, in God's eyes, he was a righteous man. Not just to Job and to himself was he always righteous, but in the eyes of God. So he did things that must have pleased God enough for God to have that impression, you know, for Job to leave that impression upon God, and for God to say that he was a righteous man and he was perfect and upright. And he feared the Lord. So God uses him as a prime example that you don't have to be. This is not something that just happens to people that are doing wrong. And God will allow your things to be touched. Your kids might start acting up. Your marriage might start failing. You know, your car, your house, your finances. So all these different areas can be touched. But there are many examples in the Bible that are not just people's belongings being touched, or things that they desire being touched, or those material things that I named. It doesn't just happen to people that are righteous. It happens to people that are living in sin as well. And I constantly try to keep it in reminder that when we know that we're not living according to the way that the Lord would like us to, when bad things start happening to us, we try to figure out whom else we can blame it on instead of taking responsibility that it might just be you. It's something that you're doing that's causing this action to start happening to you. So we give credit to, it's just bad luck, instead of understanding maybe you might have lied, maybe you might have cheated, maybe you might have stole, maybe you might have hurt somebody. You know, maybe the Lord was testing you to be charitable to somebody else and you were stingy, you know. So there's many different reasons of why we go through the things that we go through on a regular. But I use these men as prime examples to show how suffering is and how it works. And how can you escape some of that, you know, through your obedience, through you constantly keeping yourself in prayer, or keeping God in your life constantly. And I like the fact that with all these men's stories, how each one of them just never decided to curse God or blame God. And I'll give an example, you know, of cursing God. One time I was at work and I had a patient, and the lady was in pain. Now this woman, she screams all the time. And she screams when you're not doing something fast. You know, if she never met the person before and they're brand new in the room, oh, I don't want that nurse, go get me so-and-so. So-and-so might not be here for the week. You know, they have their couple of days off. So one day, I heard her scream. It was a new person. I had walked into the room, and the lady was telling her, you know, this other person that you want is not here. So she thought I was going to be her person for the day. And I was just helping the other young lady, because sometimes you have to have a witness when you go into the room. Sometimes people can lie and say they didn't help me at all. So then, you know, that gets written off on the person gets in trouble for being accused of not helping or something like that. So I was a witness helping to rotate this woman. And the lady went to grab a pillow or something like that and shifted this woman. This woman had a stroke, but she was very heavy set. And she told the lady, F you and F God. Now, by this time, I taken off my gloves, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to go and make sure that I chart. This is what she stated to this other person. She's saying she doesn't want our help. We have to write it off as what we call a refuse. But at that point in time, my mind went somewhere else, because I know my relationship with God, and I understand that type of behavior, he doesn't tolerate it. And if you're already suffering and you start blaspheming him, that doesn't result well for the person. So they're going to constantly be going through something, because they're showing God, I don't need you right now. I don't need no help from you. I don't want you. And I don't want nobody else that you're trying to send into this room to help me. I'm refusing everything. So there's moments where people behave like that, and they curse God because they're suffering or because they're in pain. But I like the fact that these brothers, they didn't do that. And even Job, medically, there was something wrong with him that he couldn't figure out how to get rid of it. He just knew it was sores, it was painful, and he just wanted all this to end. He just lost all his kids. The Sabians just came in and killed all his children. So he was just like, his whole world was messed up. But he never not once got up and cursed God, like the way my patient cursed God because she was in pain. So y'all gonna get me in trouble. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get back. I had to pause it for that on that one. I'm sorry. Well, my listeners probably say, well, what they laughing at when the pastor say, how can you hear the word without a pastor? But he said he's thinking, how can I hear without my hearing aids? He said, speaking of Job, we said Satan probably placed a bet on your hearing. So yes, anyway. So Job is being challenged. He loses his family and his wealth. Then Satan has asked, can he test Job some more? And then Job loses his health. Then Job, his health is so bad. He doesn't curse God. He just wishes he wasn't even born. By this time he's saying, I'm fed up with this, because of the way he's feeling. Then he has some friends that come over and try to get all in his head, trying to tell him how to have a relationship with God. Which, later we read in the chapter that got them in trouble as well, because then the Lord turned around and scolded them as well. God disciplined Job's friends. Even Job's wife, was telling Job, just curse God already, just get it over with. So everybody's telling him to curse God, but he wouldn't do it. He was like, no, and finally we come into part of the chapter where Job, his eyes are more open and he sees what the Lord was trying to do to him. But all the while, Job's problem was fear. He let a lot of fear rule over him. And most of us do that today. And that's why I brought in the other gentlemen, that I brought in, like Daniel and Joseph and Abraham. Fear sets in sometimes, especially when we have to do a new thing, something that's not comfortable to us, or something, we've never had to do it before. So God moves us the way that he moves us, whether it be through discomfort, which we'll tie all up with suffering, through our obedience, he tests us, to see exactly what we're going to do. And depending on us, really as what we do, the choice that we make and how we decide to obey God, that determines the outcome of what's happening in our lives. And then even the people that we have in our lives that will influence us to leave God, or not to pray to him, or not to go to church, or, just different things, not to fellowship with other people. We have people like that among us that will encourage us or try to discourage us, let me say, us from God. I had heard a comment from someone that their husband had made, and I guess she was going to go to church, and he had said, "You're going to go sing in that choir again for another 50 hours?" But it wasn't like there was anything that she was doing that was wrong. It just was discomforting to him. And a lot of times when we have spouses, our relationship with God, they become jealous of it. But they don't say, I'm jealous of your relationship with God, because they have in the back of their mind, if they're believing in the Lord, they have a fear of saying, God, I'm mad at you right now because you taking all my wife, or you taking all my husband from me. So a lot of times your relationship with God, people can get jealous of that relationship and try to figure out how they're going to get in between that. But the best thing for us to do is continue on with the Lord. And the Lord is showing us over and over again, with Job, with Joseph, with Abraham, with Daniel, that no matter what happened to them, they continued to believe in God. They continued to walk with him. They continued to press on. I hope that you guys enjoyed that. And be tuning in again. Thank you for tuning in to Power Panel 365. Okay, we'll go back to a question.
While Sister Shaw was reading about Job, my eyes had glanced over to chapter 14, verse 13. Can you explain that to me? What Jesus said, Pastor Calvin?
Now you said 14 and what now?
Verse 13, chapter 14. Pastor Tower, can you explain that to me? I'm confused.
Chapter 14.
Job, chapter 14, verse 13.
Oh, he's saying, oh, that thou wouldest hide me in the grave, that thou wouldest keep me secret until thy wrath be past, and thou wouldest appoint me a set time and remember me. Now, at this point in time, Job, he's got these sores on him. So he's asking the Lord, please just hide me by this time. Don't let me be seen like this.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's contradicting Jesus.
Well, because by this time, Christ isn't around yet. So he doesn't have that same, let me see. He hasn't been introduced to Christ's dispensation yet. So this is way before Christ. That's why Job is going through what he's going through. They're still under the law.
This is before Christ.
Yes, they're still under the law.
So this is BC.
Yeah. So he's still in this chapter in 14. He's still in pain. He's begging God. You said start at 10, right?
Yeah.
But man dieth and wastes away.
Verse 10.
Okay. So 14 and 10, it says, but man dieth and wastes away. Yeah, man giveth up the ghost. And where is he? Now, see, he doesn't understand where you're going to go once you die. He don't understand. As the waters fell from the sea and the flood decay and drieth up, so man lieth down and riseth not. So he's saying, man die and don't come back. Till the heavens be no more, they shall not awake, nor be raised out of their sleep. So he doesn't know that later on the dispensation is saying, like the book of Revelation, all that stuff. I won't go into it right now, but how man's going to die and, the transformation, the different things that's going to happen. But at this point in time, he just saying anything that's describing, he's hurting right now. He's really hurting because he got these sores on him. He doesn't know how to treat them. He's not feeling good. He's not trying to curse God, but he's just wishing. He's like, that thou wouldest hide me in the grave. So will you do something for me, or just get rid of me, or just kill me? Or, I think that pain, because I've seen a lot of people that have gone through that type of pain, having sores and stuff like that on their bodies, and things that are flesh-eating diseases, and that type of stuff.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Job.
Yeah.
It's the Old Testament.
Yes.
Oh, okay. You're right.
Yeah. But you're right though, because it almost makes you think of, when you're looking at it, it does make you feel like it's a contradiction because of the way that he's saying, and you like thinking, well, why would you just want to end your life like this? What's happening? But yeah, that's what happened.
That's kind of like, but man dieth and wastes away.
Yeah.
And ye man give up the ghost. And where is he?
Yeah. So he's in pain.
That's confusing to me,
Yeah, so Satan is asking him, bring him into my jurisdiction so I could curse him. It says, then said his wife unto him, doest thou still retain thy integrity? Curse God and die. Now, I like the fact that he just said, too, on that question, that he said, though he slay me. Now, that's what I meant by him, suffering, because Job could have cursed God at any point in time. Now, even his wife is telling him, just get it over with. I'm going to repeat it again. He said, but at 10 he says, but he said unto her, thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh. What shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? So, he's telling her, like, if we do this, the evil is going to come upon us, far more worse than what it's already. Yeah, even though he's hurting, he still does have some wisdom, That was a good question, though, Charles. But yes, he was hurting very badly, and I like how we just talked about on second verse and 10 of Job. In the end, he says, in all this, did not Job sin with his lips. So the whole time he's suffering, he still has not cursed God. And that is the main objective of the chapter. Satan made a bet with God. Well, if you let me get my hands on him, I guarantee you he's going to curse you. But that's the evil. He knew how bad he was going to do Job, but he knew that the Lord said, but don't kill him. Don't kill him. You can do whatever you want to him to make him suffer, but don't kill him. So that's why he went after the family and different things like that. But it's a very, very interesting chapter to read. If you have the chance, you can read it at home.